I come from.
Nice. All right. So the July 24th, 2025 TMV meeting get started. I had the last meeting, Pam corrected me, and I think she was right that we should be announcing on the video that who's here, who's present from the Transportation Board. My thought process being the only recordings we actually have of this, we don't have minutes, is the video recording. And AI will get there soon enough, but for now, like I don't think the automated transcripts will actually go around and say who's here just by looking at us. So for now, as we go forward, let's just gonna go around, announce our names as being present here, and then we can move on with the meeting. So if you don't mind, start us off.
Ellie Honecker.
Michael Gloden. David Owens. Josh Stewart.
Jeff Selzer.
Matthew Duff. Derek Mills.
Thank you very much. All right. Looks like we have at least a few people who are interested in doing public comment. We'll give each person 3 minutes. We start maybe around that corner, please. Well, now, say your name, where you live, and then tell us what you have to say.
Connie Cantrell. I live in down the street. I think I'm in Second Ward. So I've lived in Littleton for 72 years, and I thought since this is a transportation board meeting that I would actually start listing all the things as a human being, a single human being, all the traffic issues that I've had in Littleton, for 72 years. Well, starting at 16. So one of the things I wanted to share with you, I was 16 years old and they decided to make Littleton Boulevard a two-way street, 2 ways. And I remember vividly turning into that one-way street and seeing those cars coming at me. And then I remember being a major ticket, losing my license when I was dragging down Windermere Street. So, but I don't do that anymore. Here in these meetings, the shuttle bus is so important. I know it's going to be a while before we get that shuttle bus. I spent the last week working with Omnibus, trying to get the Omnibus to come to Bradley House and pick up 5-6 people at the same time, each week, trying to set up the same sort of thing. And I've spent a lot of my time this week trying to make that happen. And I'll let you know next month, whether we were able to do it, because you have to call 7 days ahead of time to make a reservation. And then I've got to remember that, seniors got to remember that, and trying to get a bus that comes on a regular set time. The other thing that I've shared with you is the crossing walk in front of the Bradley House, and I did do a traffic calming request on the online on the application. I think they may be giving cars tickets, but I was wondering if Datura is one of the streets that you're looking at to really get it down in detail, because it's probably one of the streets other than downtown that has more people walking on that street than anywhere else, and people of vulnerability, people who might not necessarily look both ways. And so and I think it needs to happen from Littleton Boulevard all the way up to the library. And per your comment last month of that, there's no really way to get to a kid to get on a bike to get to the library. And as I've been driving around, it's like, yeah, that's really the truth. Also, we had a question on how will we know about the she can follow up. She was going to ask the question.
Okay,
Pass the baton.
And everything she said, I agree. I live at Ellison Court, which is the next door building to the same SMHO. Yeah, so
I'm sorry, can we get your name?
my name is Barbara Wisniewski. Sorry, I missed the last couple of meetings. I'm sorry.
No worries.
So yeah, we were just getting ready to, we put it in the system, and then I didn't actually check back to see if there's like feedback of what's happening in there. Or, I mean, can you tell us what might be going on with that request? There?
Yeah, we have a big backlog of those requests. And so our intern is diligently working on them. And so we're hoping to get caught up next couple of months or so. So you should be hearing a response soon. And I can tell you that that crosswalk on Datura is part of our pilot project list. So there will be some temporary curb extensions added and some additional signage
Yeah.
that should be installed sometime this fall.
Okay, that's great. And the big, what you mentioned about the big motorhome that parks right there. I mean, maybe they're getting tickets, that's great, but I mean, it's so dangerous to have to stick yourself way into the street to see if there's a car coming, you know, and I don't know. People, well, I guess that's all. I just wanted to update myself on what's going on here. And I really support the stuff with the buses too, because I also don't drive, and King Supers and all that, whatever comes out of that, is really that's important to me too.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the curb extensions that will be part of that pilot project will shorten that crossing distance so that you hopefully have more protection. And then we are working with our PD to ticket more cars on Datura there. So that should continue. And the other good news is that we finally are about to get approval for our Arapahoe County-wide transit and micromobility study, and we have a kickoff next week.
Oh, that's great.
So 2 years in the making, but it's finally happening. And then Shane and I have been talking a lot about the transit section of the TMP as well, and looking beyond just RTD at Omnibus is in that section of the TMP right now, but looking at what else we can maybe analyze as part of that, especially for seniors and folks with disabilities and whatnot, so.
Hi there, my name is Robin Bernstein. I live at Littleton Crossing. And I haven't had a car for 25 years. I gave it up. It never worked, and too many tickets and everything else. But anyway, the speeding vehicles still need to slow down. They go really fast on Main Street, Littleton Boulevard, and now Nevada and Powers, right where I live. They do the U-turns. And parking lots are also a potential pedestrian killer. The car continues to terrorize and dominate the roads. For me to get past the car to the sidewalk is a great relief when navigating dangerous streets. So Safer Streets Initiative needs safety as a priority for pedestrians, reduce the speeds for the car, protective left turns, give pedestrians time to cross, and prioritize sidewalks. Endurance, strength, and vigor, curiosity are qualities that can be restored by walking without the car. Walking to the RTD 0 or 66 or even the light rail are all avenues and options for social awareness beyond the car. Can the cops do more? Yes, they can. They can ticket these speeding vehicles with the distracted driving and everything else that they do. Mandatory class taught by a cop on dysfunctional driving and tools for awareness and anger on the road. So the shopping cart is really needed for Littleton to give all who need it more possibilities beyond the car, crossing dangerous intersections and parking lots and streets. That would be helpful. Then I wouldn't have to be so fearful dodging the car. Thank you.
If I sit over here.
Sure.
Say 30 seconds.
We don't get your face full on the camera though.
My name is Pam Chadbourne. I live a block and a half from here. Thanks, Jeff, and everybody for saying your names. I'm proud of you. Say it. I want to say that we need integrated, evidence-based definition of a mission Littleton. I don't want separate economic development and transportation plans or a project downtown or any of that. I want mission Littleton, and I want to understand how all the parts fit together and function or don't. And I'm going to tell you that urban design has that skill. You can take land uses with their densities and you can estimate residential, commercial, office, manufacturing, teaching, the job kind of things, institutional uses, churches, schools, nonprofits, parks, and open space. You can estimate from all of that whether the city is going to function financially and transit. And you can tell where we get too big for the capacity we have. It's like a bathtub. We used to use that metaphor. And, there's a capacity, and beyond that, we're broken. And we need to know that. You need to know that. You cannot make the decisions you are talking about without knowing that, both economically and in terms of transportation. So we need requirements that show us what the limits to growth are. And I'm going to make a little pitch for Littleton Boulevard historical value, because that's supposed to be coming up as a sub-area plan. Wrong way to do it, but we need a circulator bus on Littleton Boulevard, preserving the historic character and the views. And then Powers as a pedestrian bike street protected. And I think the power of that is wonderful. Economically, the kinds of businesses that we have on both, the support between both, the first and last mile, I think it's very powerful. Anyway, right now we have a siloed, stovepiped, walled off special interest approach, and Littleton is on a nosedive to the destruction of the assets that we've built over the last 60 years that make it attractive. We're going to achieve average or mediocre, or if we're lucky, and failure if we're not, because you and all of us don't know what we're going to get. So based on data, we don't need crowded streets that choke off cars. Don't copy the failures. I keep hearing this. No, we've got to set a goal to optimize all forms of transit. And so thank you, Jeff, for reminding me last time. Last time everybody talked about vehicles, pedestrians, and bikes. I mentioned public transit, and Jeff reminded me that also you got to do massive maintenance vehicles and emergency vehicles. You have to plan for all of those, and you got to integrate that plan. It's got to accommodate all. You cannot just talk about bikes or peds and that's all. That is a failure. So I have much more that I could express. Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Pam. That's it. I don't see anyone else. So for tonight, hopefully everybody had a chance to review the materials and the agenda. We're gonna start off actually by welcoming a guest, Bobby Thomas from the Next Gen Committee. I know that Derek has joined your meetings at least once. So maybe Derek, if you don't mind kind of doing a little introduction of where you guys have left it, and we can talk about tonight.
Yeah, when I had a chance to introduce kind of the basic operating of what the Littleton Transportation and Mobility Board is here to do, one of the things that was a big goal for both of us, and something that the Next Gen Board is collaboration and being able to unify the citizen inputs into a more comprehensive and whole combined system. One important thing about doing that is to get the conversation, to get the understanding to each of the groups about what is there. We introduced kind of what we do, the master plan, the leadership, the recommendations, the city council, anything transportation related. But the Next Gen Board is something that I've been able to investigate, but we would like to have Bobby kind of give us the 101 of how that is and how we can better work together.
Yeah, so I wanted to come and chat and make the introductions and also let you guys know like where some of our priorities and stuff for the year are and see where there's opportunity for collaboration and things like that. So Next Gen Board is 7 people, really the only requirement being under the age of 35, and then there's some other kind of exceptions and students and things like that. As of now, we're all just residents under 35. And the council's tasked us with kind of 2 nice things. I think our purpose is really nice and clear. Our scope is a little broad. So on one hand, it's trying to give recommendations for civic engagement, just in a general sense, but with a specific lens of kind of being a pathway both to council from younger voices and then back out, because city council meetings and just council recommendations in general don't always communicate that well into that demographic. And then to advise and make like concrete policy recommendations and advice on, this is where the scope gets a little messy. Just basically council's 5 whole key priorities areas of like housing, safety, economic development, infrastructure, and environment. So I think right now the board is going through a little growing pain period of trying to balance those 2 things, of not just trying to be city council and take on everything, and figure out where that focus with the next generation in mind has like the greatest amount of impact in those priorities. what we are concretely kind of working on this year, at the moment, we're focusing on environment, with the, South Metro Waste Disposal Plan. And we've been partnering with Public Works and Environmental Stewardship Board for that. That should be wrapping up this August meeting, early in the month. And then we've kind of got news priorities, but nothing super concrete on our agenda for the rest of the year. There's definitely a high emphasis on kind of the two priority areas of economic development and safety. Potentially trying to look at a little bit of either Project Downtown or Littleton Boulevard sub-area plan, or both, and just seeing where next gen perspective might be helpful there. And then there's definitely some interest from the board on chiming in on the housing discussion in some way, potentially getting ahead of and adding some insight into Geneva Village on some of that. I know last year they had a number of discussions around safer streets. I don't necessarily know what came of this. I'm new to the board of this as of this year. So I wasn't around for all of those and don't have anything particularly concrete.
And I can provide a little context. I presented to the Next Gen Advisory Board about Safer Streets. So it was very high level overview of what the Safer Streets program is, and the different types of projects we're doing, and answered some questions, but it was kind of started and ended at that.
No concrete deliverable from there. That leads nicely to the next point. If we're having a big emphasis this year on trying to make sure we really align with those two goals of either producing concrete deliverables on these things. So for example, with the waste disposal plan, writing a letter of endorsement on the city adopting that plan, as well as what key parts the Next Gen board most supports with that. Or aligning with that second priority area of like establishing some form of connections, bringing new voices into the discussion with city council, things of that nature. For example, I'm trying to connect with more student groups and things at ACC to be able to source opinions from them, and some groups looking at improving election turnout around among younger voters for our residents. So that's definitely a big priority area for us, is trying to better serve in that capacity of not just being 7 younger voices to advocate for, but trying to be a full connection point to a much broader. So I think that's a good high level overview, and I'm happy to chat about anything else, but I think after talking with my board about being here today, I know the most pressing thing for a lot of people was knowing that the transportation master plan is kind of a big thing this year, and hoping to hear more about what that process looks like. And then obviously just tailored with it, if there's anywhere in that Next Gen focus could be best applied, whether that's just again us dialoguing about sections of it or what feels most important, or leading into that capacity as if there are any voices, demographics, things like that we could potentially try to go out to bring a more collaborative, broader perspective to.
And I know something that would be really, really important, at least for our process. I mean, one, as you know, in the Transportation Mobility Board's website, we have this public survey that is to bring that information, having more and more. Like, people fill that out, but also like if you guys were able to get like some transportation opinions, input, because that's also important for us to get that perspective, because well, we see this here, we see staff, we see everything else. The younger population of Littleton, they interact on some of the electronic, but we do not have a lot of touch points with them. That is something that would be very helpful with allowing us to be able to get a more comprehensive and Littleton wide transportation mobility plan recommendations together.
It's a good one. We could definitely, I'll include that in my report at the meeting next month, and just making sure all the board members have that link and share it freely, and see if anyone has good ideas of the channels to communicate it through that could get broader reach. I've taken it already, not to brag, but I'm ahead of the curve.
Good flex. Yeah, I said, just to reiterate, we've expressed in here the interest in collaborating and working more closely with some of the other boards, trying to find areas of common interest and overlap and see what we can do there. So a couple of things that you mentioned, the safety being one, that is a lot of the conversation that we've had in here over the last year or so is about safer streets. In the transportation master plan update, we have doubled down on wanting to focus on safety, incorporating beyond just autos, as the kind of the only or primary focus, but also expanding that out to multimodal, and a big aspect of that is the safety, right? People are gonna, most people are not like Robin and will brave the streets even if they don't feel safe. Most people are gonna wanna feel safe before they go out and brave the streets. So that's a big area for us. So if there's other top areas within that topic that you guys have hit upon or do hit upon as being important, we'd love to hear them. Perhaps they're things we've already talked about, but they might be things that we haven't discussed either.
That's great.
That gives us more ammunition and more bullets when we go to council and say, hey, here's what we want to do. And oh, by the way, the next gen guys are all behind us too.
Absolutely.
I don't think we're opposed at all to like, that's, more or less what's happening with waste disposal plan and environmental stewardship board is, we want to add our own opinions to that dialogue and stuff, but like we have no issue at being hey, this isn't just our transport mobility board, we run this by like another group. Like I find that to be well in line with our like vision of a board. It's just adding a second lens and endorsement and like any additional perspective in that. And I think I imagine that's valuable to council. I think it is.
I think regardless, as we are working through some of these topics, it sounds like maybe we should be seeing you, if you will, like on some of our ideas and memos to council, questions that we have, just to get that feedback. As Derek was saying, at least from my perspective, the more voices we hear, the better. We want to hear all of them, whether they agree with our preconceived notions or not, so that we can try to make the best decisions for the whole city.
And I think, we have a lot of developments going into Littleton right now, and that is going to increase traffic, like Costco is going to increase traffic, other things are. And we have 5-year plans and things like this, but the next gen advisory is like, most people that show up to city council meeting, the timeline is 20 years, but for next gen, it's 40 years, 50 years, and so how is it being impacted decades from now, and how do we start laying groundwork for what needs to be there? Because, no one in the city of Littleton can really stop growth. Like if an individual wants to sell their place, or parking, there's very few things that we can do to truly stop growth. And so, it's important for us to have things and the next gen, I think is really good for the longer term perspective.
The sustainability lens on a lot of that. It's very important. Yeah.
And like if there is finite amount of space on roads, and so what are the things that we can do to get more people through quicker, and there are ways in the transportation world to make that happen, and next gen could have some feedback on that.
Can I ask, and this may just be your personal opinion or just what you know of the others on the board, but in my head, I'm 22, but I have no idea what it's like to be under 35. How important is mobility to the younger generations, to the people at ACC, people still in school here in Littleton, as far as getting around in cars, bicycles, walking, and not necessarily from a standpoint of recreation, but actually being able to.
Yeah, I think that's something, that already wrote it down of like that. I think that's a thing that we as a board could do better at. The agenda this year is reaching out to schools again, like AC, not the best time of year for that, turns out summer, but and trying to source some like additional perspective from that and really trying to get like a broader perspective. For me personally, being in like the out of school, but still under the 35 is like, it's really important. We all have like I went to school in like Boulder, my friends are now distributed all over the Front Range. So like just getting around in general takes many different forms for me, from like going to get dinner with people all the way up in Boulder and the vast commute that is, to also trying to do stuff downtown here in Littleton all the time, because that's fun and that's part of why I moved here and why I like it here. So I think like transport as a whole is very non-monolithic. There's probably a better word for that, but very diverse from a lot of younger people's perspectives, both whether it be commuting to work, getting to school, just the social lives we kind of live in a very distributed, not like isolated community way anymore. So I think it takes a lot of different forms and it's going to have different prioritizations for a lot of people, but I am very interested in kind of that school age, younger people, the people actually working in some of our stores and businesses downtown and stuff like that, like what that looks like for them. So I'd be happy to raise that to see if there's anyone on the board who wants to take that up at our next meeting of trying to be a point of outreach to some more of those places, and when they feel more comfortable, or just we can get them into our meetings or stuff like that and then circulate the ideas back to you all. That would be a great use of our time.
I feel like I have to jump in for Pam and say, don't forget about transit.
In transit, well, yeah, definitely.
It's huge, yeah.
That's great. And yeah, Jeff, to your point, I think it would be good, especially just with the like overlap. I don't think Next Gen Board has overlap with every other city board, but there are certain ones where it's a lot more obvious. I think environmental stewardship and transfer mobility are high. Trying to have somebody on either board or both boards keeping a little bit of better tabs on those groups, and just being able to do what council does with their reports and stuff like that. Of like, hey, I watched somebody dedicated who's watching these meetings, knows what's going on, whatever, and being able to bring that up to our broader council would be a helpful point for good tabs on what's happening there.
I think one, just to throw out brainstorming, right? So thinking out loud with dangerous. One other way to maybe create better engagement there. We're trying to plan our meetings, our agendas kind of at least three to 6 months out. The closer in we are, the more definitive it is, but it's a little fuzzy. But perhaps as we're coming up with the next 3 to 6 months, sharing those with you. And then you and on your board can talk about which meetings you might want to be a part of.
Yep.
Which agendas you'd like to be engaged in. So that at the very least, education wise, kind of getting you guys up to speed on what we do. But also if there's particular areas that overlap with things you guys are trying to do in the near future, we can talk about either maybe doing a joint meeting or having more of your folks come here or more of our folks go to your meeting to try to double up on that.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think at this point, feel free to me for the touch point on that and send anything my way, and I'll just keep that in my reports at our meeting. But I think that'd be great. I know there are there's like variety of interest on the board related to transport, but I know there are a number of people who are just very interested too, who I'd like to point that direction to keep better tabs and potentially be more involved here. So awesome, great.
Didn't help it, the LPS.
Yeah, we have the superintendent of LPS now postponed to November. So to talk about, obviously transportation related issues when it comes to schools.
That'd be a good one. Okay, November,
Be really good collaboration.
At the end of this meeting, we'll talk about the next few meetings that is coming.
You guys are farther out planning than we are. We're trying to get a few.
It took us 6 years.
I know, right?
Yeah, some of your,
Myself some grace with that.
some of your pain points are felt here. I mean, we're both advisory boards, and so I think it's touch of identity crisis to some extent. So, and also your note of wanting to be able to produce, tangible product, or, it's not necessarily the true definition, but that, yeah. And I know we felt that for quite some time as well.
Oh, validating.
Definitely feel your pain. Is there any other comments from our board or anything else you feel like you'd like to ask or contribute?
No, I think that's, let me see. No, yes. Yeah, most people, let's see. This was a brief discussion point at our last meeting, just what any general voices any general points people wanted to air and send this way. Some of them related to what's already come up, so. Sustainability of what increased volume and traffic looks like as Littleton starts to grow or continues to grow was definitely one that people considered a high priority issue in the transport lens. And then the other one being, I know that especially related to the transportation master plan, just as we glanced through that briefly, of like making sure to not use existing numbers in terms of like what the use is to justify where investment of resources is going. And so very long-term next gen perspective of let's plan for what we think we don't want Littleton to be, not how it currently is. So nice concrete things. There you go. Just do that. That's right. No, I think that's all I got.
Okay. Anyone else on the board?
I have a quick question. Is the waste transfer information up on your site?
That is not. We are gonna put the letter up that we're drafting right now, during our next meeting, but a lot of that information is, I can send it if you want to distribute it. There's South Metro Waste Diversion. If you just Google that, there's a whole, separate website dedicated to that. It has all the, main information points on it. And then they just presented to, the study session on Tuesday as well. So the recording of that has kind of the most up-to-date compressed ideas of that as well.
And I can find the information and send it out to the board.
That would be great. It's really cool, but the actual like studies in there get pretty in-depth. They were digging through trash and everything. It's really interesting. And there's a lot of stuff transport related on single hauler versus multi-hauler. Trash truck congestion on the streets, that type of stuff. So here we go.
You read my mind.
There's an overlap there. We get them 4 days a week.
So I can speak as an engineer, a lot of that is designed and planned for public infrastructure and a majority of private infrastructure. If you ever see like concrete pads in front of dumpsters, that's all specifically identifying routes and everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting plan. It's cool though. We're looking into it.
There's a lot of thought that's put into a lot of things that none of us ever think about. Somebody's thinking about it.
Sometimes you go.
Well, with that, actually, one of your other upcoming priorities, economic development, we're going to shift to that as could have been a good transition. Want to thank Lori and Rachel for joining us tonight. I don't know if you don't mind maybe introducing yourselves so that we can go a little further. But overall, just to set the stage, we are trying to, we've talked about trying to explore the different areas of the city, trying to understand, much like the next gen, where's overlap, where do we need to be engaging, where can we get good feedback on the things that we're doing. One of the areas that obviously transportation plays a big role in is the economy of our city, getting around and getting people around so they can engage in commerce. So we are fortunate enough to have these two ladies come and join us tonight. Give us a little insight as to what they do, how it relates to transportation and the priorities, and get the conversation going.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us tonight. My name is Rachel King, and I'm the City of Littleton's Economic Development Director. I joined this team last winter, so not yet in a full year, but we're certainly busy, and I've been getting up to speed really quickly on all of our development projects and initiatives here that we've been working really hard on over the past few years. So one of our incredible partners in this work is the Littleton Business Chamber. So I'll let Corey introduce herself too.
I'm the Corey Lundock, the Executive Director of the Littleton Business Chamber. We're a not-for-profit organization, and we partner with the city and the economic development team to support business as they come to Littleton. Personally, I've lived and worked in Littleton for almost 63 years, and I'm a third generation Littleton. So as you have said, I have seen things change quite a bit over the years. I used to ride my bike to the library all the time. So I remember those days as well. So my parents still live in the same house they bought in 1962, close to where Littleton Brewery is. So you can imagine how that neighborhood is feeling. So we won't get to that one. So I guess what we have on the screen. So it was interesting when, first of all, I didn't know y'all existed. So shame on me until you reached out.
So glad you found us.
Yeah. The chamber was actually founded in 2017. I went on the board in 2020. And then through some ARPA grants and some nonprofit grants, we were able to hire a director. I ended up applying for that position. And so I've been the director for 2.5 years. So when you reached out and said, what does business think about transportation? I had no idea. None. We've never talked about it. I hear, comments on parking and the normal, but I had no idea. So ChatGPT and I created a survey. And we decided to put it out to the members. So we sent it out to over 200 business owners. We had 53 respond. And this is what we came back with. Kind of surprised, you know, we have over 352 in the chamber that the emails went out to. A lot or like 3 or 4 to each business. I was kind of guesstimating about 200 businesses in the email list. But really, I wanted to gather feedback, not only for you, but for me as well, so I could answer some of these questions. So I just kind of highlighted that some of the results, and I know you all have seen or had copies. I see that you have copies over there. These were the kind of businesses we looked at. Obviously, most of the ones that responded were office and professional, followed by retail and restaurants. That is a lot of what we work with, restaurants and the retail. Second one, number of employees, obviously, they're all small businesses. Those are 5 or less employees. And the next
So
one.
can I ask a quick question? I apologize for jumping
That's
in.
fine.
I gotta be honest, I have no idea how many companies in Littleton have over 100 employees. I see the over 100. Like, is it?
Yeah.
Do we have a lot?
There's, I would say 20, 15, 20.
Okay.
Probably more than.
I mean, you would be surprised at some of them. I mean, you've got the hospital, RNDC has 400, Echo Stars, Dish. I mean, there are, yes.
Yeah, I would have guessed 5 to 10. I didn't realize it was that many. Okay.
We mostly work with small business. We don't have a lot of large business owners. McDonald Automotive has 700 members. They're one of our members. So when you look at the car dealers and all of those,
Yeah.
there are some big companies here in town.
Thank you, sorry.
Surprisingly, yes. Luckily, it was the smaller ones that answered, and of that, over 90, almost 100% of their employees drive to work. I don't think that was much of a surprise. Between our weather and I know our office people over in the kiln space, and even though they have bike racks and showers where you could bike to work and shower and get ready, it's just not something that happens very often.
What does it mean to say that like walking is 40%, but personal vehicles is 100%?
I don't know, that's just how they answered. So I think it was how many drive, and maybe sometimes do they, so they could check the ones that.
Oh,
Yeah, so some of their employees walk and drive, but almost all of them, or 100% have personal vehicles they use, is how it was read.
We take multiple modes of transportation.
Their employees use multiple.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
One person drives, one person rides a bike.
Yeah.
But a large percentage,
Yes.
which is, I guess, just really the region, how we were developed. Transportation related issues. The largest one was lack of parking. Again, that's probably not a surprise, and I would assume that's mostly coming from downtown Littleton. When we get to the comments that came in, you know, a lot of people said, we don't have problems with parking because we have a parking lot. So I'm assuming a lot of that is coming from downtown Littleton. The next one was traffic congestion. Again, I'm thinking a lot of that is on Main Street or Santa Fe. Road maintenance and construction.
Of the 200 respondents, what
Well,
was,
we had 50 respond.
50 respondents, how many of them were downtown versus?
I don't know. It was an anonymous survey, so I don't know, but I'm just guessing by looking at the numbers. And then when we go in the next part, we've got comments that people made, and I can tell you exactly where those comments are coming. Pretty obvious, as you'll see in some of them. Lack of employee parking, traffic congestion. So all the things we complain about, no parking, construction, you know, what delays us getting to work. Pretty much is what all the businesses are seeing as well, but mostly the lack of customer parking is the #1 concern. And then the last one, again, kind of repeated itself. Or no, that was sorry, I flipped it over the wrong way. Sorry. So question 6 was how describe these issues impact your operations. People left because they couldn't find a place. The second one, the road construction on South Santa Fe created detours and high congestion currently in the end phase of construction. Also, there is not a user-friendly way to ride or bike or walk from the Mineral Light Rail to the hotels. This is, I'm sure, the Staybridge Suites right down in there. Employees have been late due to construction. I think that's probably happening across the whole state. The one busy convenience store adjacent to our building has a narrow exit. I'm guessing that's down in South Park. So we did have people from all over, kind of interesting in looking at some of these are. This one I'm sure is downtown. Both employees and customers find it challenging to get to my shop due to parking. I've had friends and neighbors say they do not come to downtown Littleton because they fear there will be parking challenges. I've also heard that people hate parallel parking and avoid downtown. So again, I don't think any of these are probably a huge surprise, a surprise to anyone. So it really kind of confirmed. I did have a couple of different ones that were interesting. This one, I said we've had serious accidents and pedestrians hit near our store. I've not really heard of that many pedestrian accidents. So I don't know where that one is. Kind of been looking at that. But I think there is some frustration with parking, and I know in the newest design for the downtown development, they're looking at taking away 34 spaces. And so that truly is a concern for obviously these businesses downtown.
I know you didn't ask it in your survey. I'm just curious if you know. Totally. What is the appetite for, step back, one way to solve parking issues? There's many ways to do it, but one way is to move to a paid parking versus free parking. Because it's not a price high enough that there's always an open spot for somebody who wants it.
I think there's always an open spot now.
I kind of feel that way.
If you want to pay for it.
So
People don't want to pay.
So is there appetite for that, or is the general, it's like,
They want free
everybody wants
parking
free
garage.
parking right in front of their business, and that's
Absolutely. That is exactly what they
limitless
want.
free parking in front of their, yes.
So before I came to the chamber, I had a real job, but I was on the board of
You're
the.
telling me this isn't a real
This
job?
is a real
No,
job.
before this real job, I was on the board for the Littleton Merchants Association for 16 years. And so I've been working with the merchants down here for 16 years up until 2019. And yes, there were a lot of discussions, and we were a part of why the parking is 2 hours on Main Street. We specifically asked for that in the early 2000s because of the post office. If it was 4 hours, people at the post office would park on Main Street, and then during their lunch break, they would move it. So 2 hours kept that from happening because a lot of time the traffic officers weren't able to get there timely right at 2 hours, but usually by 3 or 3.5. So it kind of stopped that parking on Main Street for the post office. Which is actually on one of these, we should get rid of the post office and make it the parking lot. Is one of the feedback we got. And so then we had that discussion with the merchants on and off, and you'll see there are some merchants that even right now have requested 30-minute drop-offs in front of their stores because they want those people to come, be able to pop in and get their stuff and leave. So that is what the merchants want. They want the cars to be able to park right in front and leave when they want.
In any sense of, I would imagine there would be an appeal if there was a circulator or not necessarily, I don't know if the omnibus would be coming into downtown Littleton, but there's blocks of something that can run up and down Littleton, and I imagine it would navigate in some way through downtown.
Talks of that. I know that, I think the merchants have said they would like something like that. Anything, I don't think the merchants, and we'll get to that here in a minute, is that their customers, they don't want them riding bikes, because if they're riding bikes, they can't carry home their things. So if they're shopping, they want them to have a car to carry their things. So, bikes can be hazardous. And then when it comes to obviously drinking, it is not good to drink or bike to a brewery. But some people feel it's safer to bike. I don't know what the answer to that is either. People will tell you it's not good to do either.
Better than driving a car. Better than driving a car, but yeah.
I don't know about that. I'm gonna stay neutral on that one. I'm neutral a lot right now with the election coming. So it is just interesting hearing all the feedback. It is funny to hear. And I do think a lot of our customers are old, like me. And I have never been able to ride a bike, and I'm not gonna start now because I would probably hurt myself. And if it's snowing or 100 degrees, I wouldn't be in a bike either. So I think to expect that we're all going to go to bicycles is not gonna happen with the population we have.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's expecting that, yeah.
Maybe I can follow up with a quick question, because we do have a segment of an aged population, accessibility design and making sure that while this infrastructure is conducive to people who have mobility challenges, might be another focus that might be able to help serve a lot of the citizens too.
I don't think us old people definitely have mobility issues. We just live in cars. That's what we grew up with. You know, at 16, I think it's interesting. We have the young professionals group. We've had to readjust on that in the last 2 years because people under 40 don't act the way people under 40 did when I was a teenager. I mean, we wanted to drive, we wanted to vote, we wanted to get out and drink at 21. They don't do that now. Everything is very, very different. So as we're learning, but this generation, we like to drive. We like to be independent, we like to go when we can. And that's just kind of how it is. My parents are, well, I won't tell you, my father-in-law is 89 and my dad is 85, and they both just got their new driver's license. They're not gonna be walking anywhere soon. So I was kind of surprised they both got them, but they even had to do the written test and passed. And I don't know that I could have passed the written test, so good for them. So anyways, that's kind of my little part of what I hear from the people my age. You know, they're not gonna give up their bikes or their cars.
I will add too, that's not something that is unique to Littleton either, just in my experience with other communities, and I'm sure yours as well, but in my work in other communities here in Colorado, that's a very high priority item for businesses coming in. It's on the top 3 for them in terms of whether or not it'll be a good fit, is the parking. I've been in other communities, other neighborhoods. There's wonderful, plentiful, structured parking 4 blocks away. And, you know, it's not satisfactory, right? It needs to be right up to that front door so that they can go load up all of their heavy liquor bottles at the liquor store and then carry them right to their car. And you know, they don't have to walk 4 blocks to the parking garage, right? So there's a balance there, and there's always a negotiation around that when we're speaking with businesses coming in. But that's always the talking point.
Interesting mindset. I would like to understand more about those comments, because like I go to downtown Littleton 3 to 5 times a week, various times a day. And the furthest I've ever parked away is still closer than me going to get milk at Costco. So I just don't, there's gotta be a mental block there.
I think that's that last comment of like, there's a street full of empty parking.
Yeah,
And they're still saying there's no parking.
Yeah, do people really feel like they need to park directly in front of the store and not around the corner? Like it's, and so.
Pretty much.
Well, when you compare that shopping experience with a mall, for example,
Yeah,
right?
it's 2 miles.
You're walking miles.
Yeah, I took a map of Home Depot over on Bellevue and I superimposed it on Main Street. The parking lot in Home Depot covers the entirety of that street. But no one would bat an eye to go there, walk a couple times back and forth in the store, walk back. But yet when we go to Main Street, we're like, there better be one directly in front of the store.
It almost makes me wonder if like, if no parking was on Main Street and people just accepted that the parking lot is here, and I know I'm gonna have to walk X amount of distance, would they actually be more willing to come downtown because they know what they're in for? And not get angry because they didn't get that spot right in front of the massage therapist? Like it's, and so, yeah, I guess I'm just curious about that mindset.
They were getting one nod yes and one nod no.
Yeah, I just,
I really don't know. Like I said, I've been working down with the merchants since 2004.
Yeah.
This has been the same thing over and over and over. It has not changed in 25,
Yeah.
20.
No matter what we do, people will be upset by it.
Absolutely.
Well, and like, you know, for Project Downtown, we took parking utilization counts, and what we showed is that there's not a parking problem, right? There's spots available in paid lots that people, those are underutilized because people don't want to pay if they can get free parking or, there's free parking a couple blocks away. And so.
And Ranky Brothers, obviously, he charges $5 for the day, which you're not gonna find anywhere else. The other parking lots are much more expensive and the tickets are much larger, as we all know. So I think people just aren't gonna be happy. I do know that with the project downtown, they are concerned about taking the parking off of Prince in Nevada. And those are coming from the business owners because they don't have people parking. They're worried they won't.
I'm curious, oh, sorry, Derek.
Well, one thing I do want to point out is like a big challenge about the parking is the state has passed the minimum parking law and that significantly restricts what can be enforced. And that means that a lot of businesses and anybody that's like rebuilding, new construction, all that, it's gonna be a choice, not something that is a requirement what type of parking they provide. But one thing that will happen is that some of those businesses or construction may be coming in and they rely on some of this existing parking to be their parking at the expense of their construction project. And has that been, how has that been discussed, or like, is there any feedback or anything that the business community has got thoughts on, anything like that?
That one, I don't. Like I said, this is the first time I've ever even reached out to the businesses about transportation and that kind of thing. So this was kind of a new thing. I was happy this many people responded and it was kind of interesting to see the responses.
This is
So,
Yeah, it's valuable.
again, this is the first time we've done this, so, and I wasn't really sure what to ask.
Yeah.
So this was kind of a rough start. So that would obviously be something we could ask. But I don't have an answer for you necessarily. I know, for example, with the water project that just went through downtown Littleton, the merchants were very good about, Carl gave the water department full use of his lot to park all of their equipment. I think Ranky Brothers gave them full use, did not charge them for any of that. I think the businesses are very supportive of developments going in. I do know, and this is a totally different issue, that the businesses themselves are concerned with the project downtown because not only the traffic, but the construction, after watching what happened with 16th Street Mall. The second project is if the city puts 10, 20, $30 million into downtown Littleton, you can guess that the property owners will increase their rents and the businesses are afraid they won't be able to stay.
Certainly.
So there's a lot of issues going on with project downtown that isn't just transportation.
Landlords love it. The tenants don't love it.
Exactly. One, because it will, if the construction's in front of them and it does take a year, it will slow their business. And then two, they may not be able to afford it. So a lot of different things coming from the business community in downtown Littleton. And we work within the whole city. I don't hear that much from downtown as much as probably the Downtown Development Authority does or the Merchants Association. But, this is just what I have heard from the members that I work with downtown.
I'm so glad you brought that up because we're focusing on downtown, but when I actually first saw the survey, because I saw the parking stuff, I was like, that must be the downtown guys, because I can't imagine businesses on Broadway.
Or County Line,
are
it's a
complaining
sea of
about
parking.
right? So I'm curious about,
Wilson Boulevard is having its own parking issues right now.
so I'm curious, what are the issues that you, even if it's just anecdotally, like Broadway, for example? Like, what do you hear from the businesses on Broadway, just in general, but obviously transportation related would be.
I think McDonald Automotive, they just got a new island put in. Obviously, they would like to see it wider. That won't happen.
They would like to see Broadway be wider, like more
Broadway
lanes or,
corridor.
okay.
I think there's been talk about that with the Broadway corridor down to County Line. Different discussions where it narrows right through there. I haven't heard from Bullride along the Broadway. We do more work down in South Park. That shopping center down at Mineral and Broadway, both of them obviously are under new different development and one's got different owners. But they obviously have enough parking going on in those lots, so they're doing pretty well. The Mineral project obviously is interesting and one thing that I find interesting in my years of being here for so long is when CenturyLink and those businesses went in, and Mineral was built. It was built for 3,000 parking spaces at CenturyLink, and that road was built to have 3,000 cars on it. And I think the neighbors were a little spoiled because when it was closed, they had that whole road that had been built for these 3,000 cars just to themselves. So I think a lot of that infrastructure is there. I do think the street is big enough to handle what's coming. I think it's gonna be a lot, but I do think it's very manageable. And I think everybody has been very proactive, including the businesses. A perfect example is Republic National Distributing. I don't know if you all know, they're down there. They have 400,000 square feet of liquor on that corner there. Well, most people don't know they're there. It's one of the largest businesses in Littleton. Well, now, this is going to affect, everybody's gonna know they're there, first of all. So they've been working, we connected them with Chief Stevens, and they've been working on security plans, transportation plans, how they're gonna get their trucks in off of County Line. So there's a lot of proactive work going on with that transportation piece at South Park. Trying to make sure that it isn't going to affect Mineral as much, especially even with this construction going on. So when people look at that, I don't think it's going to be as bad as they say. But my board also tells me I wear my rose-colored glasses a lot too.
Yeah, I was on Broadway, you know, by like the hospital and Mineral going south, and it was cars light to light.
Well, that's the
You know.
Jamison project, I think.
And I think it'll be like, I think there'll be points that the traffic gets really bad, you know, like the intersection of Broadway and Mineral. But then I think once they get on to Mineral, it'll be more.
But right now, I think it's narrowed there because there's the at Jamison, what's the
Lee Gulch
the
underpass.
underpass? Yeah, so it's down to one lane on each side. So that's under construction. So that is, I think, also slowing that down. So to have Broadway under construction and Mineral under construction, that neighborhood right there is really feeling
That's my
both
neighborhood.
sides.
Yeah.
I don't know, what's the timing on the Broadway Mineral intersection?
We are still in early phases of design and we need to go and ask CDOT for more money. And so we're, originally our idea was like, all right, let's do the Cadillac version, right? And see how much that costs. And then we can kind of narrow down from there. I forget if it was like 20 million or 10 million. Regardless, we have like 3 million for both intersections at Mineral and at Littleton Boulevard. So we are rethinking our strategy. A lot of that was due to the Cadillac version being what would the full build out of the Broadway corridor study cross section be, you know, up an intersection in either direction. And so a lot of that requires right of way acquisition, which just gets so expensive so fast. So we're scaling down, and we had a meeting today actually. And so more information should be coming out this fall with public engagement on that project and hoping to talk with CDOT. But construction at this point will likely be 27.
I mean, with our interaction on Broadway for businesses over there, it's a different type of commercial corridor, right? That really vehicle centric, or you know, some of those tucked away shopping centers off of the street, right? Not a lot of businesses up fronting Broadway because Broadway's Broadway. It doesn't beg for those businesses to be right there, but there are businesses cropping up. Manning's, you know, Steakhouse, a couple of retail and food and beverage tenants that they're recruiting for Littleton Village, the expansion for the hospital, et cetera, that's developing a lot more visitor activity on that corridor. And so we're keeping an eye on that too, and just watching how those businesses interplay with each other, right? With that expansion of Advent, where are those employees going to go for lunch for happy hour or for, what about their visitors when they're waiting on someone who's in the hospital for 8 hours? How do we more easily connect them to not have to ship them up to Littleton Boulevard or down to Mineral, right? Are there assets and amenities on that corridor they can access?
So that's my backyard pretty much. And I would say that's one of the most car-centric spots in all of Littleton. You know, like Manning's, if you walk up to the curb at Manning's, there is no like walkway to get into the restaurant. You'd have to walk around, come back, and then come in and go over. You know, and then on the east side of Broadway, when you go down the hill before you go back up to the hospital, there is no sidewalk on that side of the street. You know, so you'd have to, and I think on either side of the street right now.
Not on either side.
Yeah, so there's like, they're all islands. I was riding one time, driving there, and it just snowed, and they had pushed all the snow bankings onto the side, you know, right by Starbucks there. And there was a person walking towards me in the street, you know, like, cause there's a snowbank on the sidewalk.
To go.
Yeah, and I was like, this is madness around here. Yeah.
That plays into what I think one of all of our questions would be, and I don't expect you to have the answer right now. If you do, that's great. For that area in particular, and there's other areas in the city that have similar aspects to them. It'd be interesting to know how the business owners feel about the idea of trying to make it more walking, pedestrian accessible, more bike accessible, not being so heavily reliant on just automobiles getting customers there in a way.
I'd love for Cora to answer this question in her own way, but my professional take and experience is that the business owners want all of the options for their customers.
Yes.
All the above.
Everybody who gets a paying
Ship
customer
them
to
in
them.
here,
Yes.
bike them here, drive them here, fly them here, however they get here, they want.
Well, understanding that there's trade-offs to everything, right? And so the trade-off of getting more pedestrian access means it's almost certainly gonna mean reducing the ease of automobile access.
Narrowing lanes, yeah.
So that's really more the question, with the trade-offs that would come with it, not just in a, magic wand, perfect world, you can do everything.
There are certain
This-
types of
Actually asked that
businesses-
question.
Yeah. There you go. Thank you, Corey.
Largest one is improved sidewalks and crosswalks.
Yes.
I do have in the feedback here though, no bike lanes.
Yeah, I saw that.
As one of the comments.
Yeah, that's just a one.
Oh, wait, but it doesn't have anything about more parking.
This was just the transportation improvements, so, you know, obviously they want safer bicycle routes is blue, walking is yellow.
I do think.
So parking was
Expanded
not one of
light
the
rail.
options.
Well, this isn't, I don't think that was there wasn't a response, so there was no parking in that answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know there are people hoping for the sea line to come back.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
You know, that is one of the things, the sea line would be great. That's been gone for 5 years. I know it would be great to have the sea line back. It would be better to have some of those bus routes back, obviously.
I think too, like, Pam has brought up and a lot of people have brought up, which I'm very much so aligned with, the circulator bus, going around the corridors, just, that would be amazing. I live right down the hill and from Starbucks on Fremont there. And I would walk, if it came often, I would walk up and take the bus down instead of driving over there, and so it's good to see that in there.
We moved here with the express intent of taking light rail to and from work in downtown Denver every day because we had a Ridge bus.
Yeah.
And that was like 20 feet from our house.
Yeah.
And all of it's gone. Now it's once an hour, the D line runs, you gotta make a transition just to get to downtown.
Yeah.
And so Littleton is actually hurt by RTD's huge failings and the fact that we don't have these buses anywhere. So.
I mean, if we had
Well, the
same
other thing
need
too with the light rail.
Yeah.
Rural to downtown and back and forth.
And
Yeah.
you probably didn't know that, but the light rail, to take the light rail to the downtown station is more expensive than the Mineral or the Oxford station. So if people know that, typically they'll park at the other two then in the downtown Littleton one. And that was some agreement with the city when the light rail was built. And I don't know the whole politics behind all of that, but so that's why those fees are more. So it would be nice if eventually that is paid off and the fees would be the same and people could take it for the same price.
So the parking is more expensive, is that what you just said?
To get on the train, it's more expensive coming out of.
Didn't they
Littleton.
change it now, so it's just airport or not airport?
I don't think it is anymore.
Yeah, I think they changed it,
I
yeah.
think they don't have structure.
But that was like 9 months ago or something like
Yeah,
that.
so that was something that was kind of keeping people from using the light rail down here as well. And Mineral would be more full. or Oxford, because it just costs more to take the train for the same amount, for the same distance coming out of Littleton. So.
When you go as a senior, it's $5 for 24 hours.
The other thing that we heard a little bit out too was, is the RTD parking off of Rio Grande and Main Street. Mostly it's usually business that uses it because RTD doesn't
Fill up their lots
give
anymore.
tickets very often. And I don't know how they monitor that, and so, you know, if some of the parking that people use is kind of hit and miss if they get tickets or not.
Well, I think if you've got a license plate that is in Arapahoe County, you can park there
Yeah, I always park.
Pay for overnight parking.
overnight, but yeah. if
But
you-
yeah, it's dependent on how often they're doing ticketing. But yeah, you're right. If you're within
24
the,
hours. First
anywhere
24,
in the RTD district, you can park for free.
first 24 hours.
Yeah, so.
So shifting the conversation perhaps a little bit, that's all right. Rachel, maybe you can talk to us a little bit about, I know what the term economic development means, but I think it'd be great to hear from you a little more about what exactly you guys are doing and how you interact with the chamber and some of the other ones.
So that's our first question, what is economic development? Because it can't, you know, it sounds easy enough to understand, right? Okay, well, you're developing the economy, but what does that really mean and what do we do? One of the reasons why we partner so closely with the Littleton Business Chamber is because they are excellent at business development. They really, working specifically with businesses, helping them with that technical assistance, providing them with resources and connectivity. And we can do that too, and that's great. There are other things that our time is spent better on because they're so great at what they do. So let our partners shine at what they excel in, and that lets us focus on other pieces of economic development. So part of what we do is that business work. But in our industry, we refer to attraction, retention, and expansion activities. So those are things like recruiting new tenants to come in for developments here, making sure that our businesses who are here are doing well, that we have tools for them, whether that's through us or through partners, to make sure that they can extend their business life. And then help businesses who are doing so well that they want to expand either into Littleton or if there are new Littleton business, expand here in Littleton as well. So that's a key piece of the work. Related to that is that small business programming and support. So grant programs, for example, that can help businesses partially fund improvements for their exterior. For example, that's a revitalization incentive grant program. Business awareness and marketing. We are an advocate and a liaison for development activity here in Littleton. With that comes our work on incentives, so being able to provide reasonable and measurable incentives for developments coming in that will. We have a formula essentially that we work on to make sure that what they're pumping into the community in terms of tax revenue far exceeds that in which we are providing back. We're actually governed on that by the state. There's a regulation that requires there be a public benefit to any incentives that are provided to developers or to businesses. And so that's something we have to adhere to really, really closely. And of course, those regional partnerships. Some of what we don't do, we're not a broker, right? So we can't, unfortunately, we can point a business in a certain direction and give them some feedback on that, but we can't serve in that role for them. As of now, we don't have any lending products available to businesses either. We're working on that. We're trying to make those available a little bit more readily, not only in the form of a loan fund for businesses here that we would administer with a partner, but also just in working with a lot of our local lenders and institutions on some of their programs as well. Regarding that incentive note, we cannot over incentivize. So anytime we're bringing businesses in, there has to be a measured public benefit that's coming out of anything that's worked out in terms of the deal with someone. We also do not take care of workforce programming, but we partner quite a bit with our the folks over at ED Works. That's Arapahoe and Douglas County partner to have that workforce center that serves the region down here. So we.
I'm not sure I know what workforce programming means.
Workforce programming. So usually it's twofold. Folks who are searching for jobs and businesses who need help in hiring, essentially. So
matchmakers.
Right. A great recent example is EchoStar partnered with ED Works to do a hiring fair. So they needed a recruitment of significant number of employees at one time. They partnered with ED Works to do that matching.
Yeah, Tinder for employment.
All right, moving on.
And we do not provide legal advice. So we get calls on all of this list all the time.
Yeah.
Those are the things we don't do.
I'm sorry, what was start? Oh, so you're literally starting a business, like you don't.
We can't, yes, we can advise lightly, with, folks on trying to start businesses. That's usually something they'll, go more in depth on with the business chamber or the small business development center or even the workforce center. But that's not really something that we do here in economic development. We do support others all the time. That is an incredibly large portion of our work. We're connectors, we're negotiators, we're liaisons for really almost any project that you can think of in the city. So if it's an infrastructure project, a housing project, transportation project, we're making sure that we're taking a strategic and balanced approach to the development here in Littleton to make sure ultimately that the city remains fiscally sustainable. That's the end goal, right? That the city generates enough revenue to provide those A+ services that the city provides to the residents now. We don't want those services to wane. Littleton receives over 80% of its revenue from sales tax. We get 2 mills in property tax from Arapahoe County. So it's something, but it's not much. So we really have a heavy hitting sales tax portion of that budget. And if we don't take care of that, the city will be in a lot of trouble financially. So that's where this strategic approach to really paying attention to what that redevelopment looks like in the city is crucial.
Can you give us a specific example of how you've interacted? I mean, obviously with the transportation board, so that might be a good example, but what that means when you say strategic balance development, what are you doing to get engaged in a transportation project in the city?
Certainly. I mean, a great current example is the project that kicked off for the sub-area plan for Littleton Boulevard, right? So Kenna and I and some other folks from our teams are participating on the project management team for Littleton Boulevard to make sure that we are having that balanced approach to consider all of those facets that make Littleton Boulevard unique to begin with, but then also what is that next iteration that is going to carry that vision through the next 30 years. It needs to be fiscally sustainable. We know that. We also know that there are transportation considerations and initiatives that we need to support that redevelopment on the corridor and all at the same time retain that historic character that and the history that the corridor provides. So it's an incredible, some of the conversations have been really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, to get into the meat of what that looks like and how you balance that all out. But that's why we're getting some help and making sure that we have a lot of folks at the table who can help us get through that efficiently. effectively with the communities. Similar to that note, right, long-range financial planning. So as we're looking at, for example, our capital improvement projects, our CAP in that budget, what does it look like 30 years from now? I know 30 years from now in a budget exercise is nebulous at best. It's incredibly fuzzy at that range, but it's still pretty crucial to figure out, you know, do the pipes under Main Street have to get replaced in 50 years, you know? And how does that work into all of the redevelopment that's happening? And that's where we're at in Littleton right now, is that phase of redevelopment in its history, because we're built out essentially. So we're looking at infill at best, you know, mostly redevelopment opportunities at this point. And each of those opportunities is pretty crucial because we're kind of revenue vice of that sales tax.
Of which Costco is probably the most impactful example as of late.
As of late, absolutely. But we need that balance, right? Littleton is unique because of things other than us having a Costco, right? So we need to.
I hope that's not our claim to fame.
We need to preserve those things that make it incredible and special, and attract folks, you know, young folks to move down here, and attract folks to stay here when they age out of their primary home, right? So all of those come together, and we're doing what we can to make sure that we're in all of those conversations to push that in the right direction. Similar note, we partner a lot with our communications department on tourism initiatives, and we partner with other community organizations on that as well. Things like the Arts and Culture Board, the Littleton Merchants Association, a number of other folks to make sure that, I mean, everyone knows Littleton is a special place and an amazing place to live, but also to visit. And then how do we increase that satisfaction in your visitor experience? And at the same time, how do we not overwhelm the city and the residents and the businesses with that tourism attraction and those visitors? That's a fun balance to work on as well. But Littleton's had a history of events, and that's always made it unique.
Is that mostly tourism from like surrounding cities? I just don't think about Littleton as a destination for people flying in from other parts of the country. Maybe that's just me.
Sure. We find mostly you have a connection here, right? So even if you are flying in, you are maybe coming here for a wedding, or maybe somebody lives here or something like that. There are criteria. Yeah. That's exactly the next piece is some of those events are national and are growing on that national scale. So I would say if folks are flying in directly into Littleton without another connection, it's usually for Criterium. There's a gosh, I'm blanking on the Arts and Culture.
Western Welcome Week?
No, not that one. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a multi-day.
The library.
Yes, yeah.
And I can tell you, we work with the hotels down at County Line on Broadway or Santa Fe. And there was just a big softball tournament, a women's softball tournament from college, went from Fort Collins down to Pueblo. They sell out every year, all those hotel rooms down there. They also do a lot of hockey tournaments with South Suburban. So the hotels down there, I believe the Staybridge Suites right now alone is giving $700,000 a year to the city in lodging tax.
Wow.
And their occupancy rate is about 89% full at all time, for tournaments and weddings and things. So we need to thank the hotels more.
Yeah.
When we were
I
building,
respect.
when we were building our house, we stayed there for a week or two, and there was tons of like baseball teams and softball teams coming in while we were staying there.
I had no idea.
One,
Destination for them.
one question I have is like for something like the Littleton Boulevard study. It seemed, and specifically about like the transportation and the business side of it. I feel like there's a push and pull between placemaking and car-centric development. Like the more you make it car-centric, the less plus placemaking, tends to be the pattern. And so how do you all balance, any of you three, because you're all part of this, but how do you balance the like business viability of it while also making it accessible for all modes of transportation, while also doing placemaking, which I think that's the kind of places like people want to go. And like we drive to Fort Collins to go to some of their little developments that are really nice, all the way from down here. But we park 5 or 6 blocks away and we know that when we drive up, so how do you all balance that?
I'll go back to what I was saying before about, do they want parking? Do they want people to be able to bike there, right? They want all of it. They want that incredible place that folks drive down the street, see the boulevard and say, wow, this is amazing. I have to stop. I have to walk around. I have to linger.
Yeah.
The longer you linger, the more money you spend, right? And the more chance there is to stumble into a store that you didn't know was there before. So they want that place to draw people in. They want people to be able to get there however they're getting there. It's usually by car now. But then they want that neighborhood activation for folks living in the area to be able to get there. They want that parking lot in the back. It's right behind the back door. That's not possible.
Yeah, okay. There's conflicting.
75% of the cases, but I think for Littleton Boulevard in particular, truly, I don't think I'm wearing my rose-colored glasses when I say this, but maybe I am, because I've seen it in other communities and other neighborhoods. When you're that thoughtful about the growth and the redevelopment and the partners that you choose to incentivize for development, they can make that happen.
Yeah, we went up to Boulder recently for dinner because we had some people from out of town and they were like, we want to go to Avanti, food hall. And like, we knew that we were gonna have to go and find a parking garage and park it, and people coming from all over the Denver area. And it could be nice to see something like that with Littleton Boulevard of like an attraction, that brings people in. And we figure out the parking spots, the few parking places that get, so there's always the feeling of parking.
I think of one of our favorite places is Manitou Springs.
Oh, yes.
And we know we're gonna pay for parking. We know exactly where the lot's gonna be. And because they have this great lot system, we're there for 3 or 4 hours. You talk about lingering, like it's the spots in front of the stores that are actually the detriment to that town.
Yeah.
It's these giant parking lots that we drop $5 and we spend 5 hours. And so I could see Littleton, it's not quite a Manitou, but it's like, we don't have a lot of areas like this in Denver, Colorado. Like it's something special downtown.
So I just thought for the next couple of slides, I wanted to come back to the comprehensive economic development strategy that the city adopted in 2024. And this was a huge effort, a very large amount of outreach, multiple iterations, multiple workshops to create these 6 supporting pillars of our work. And ultimately, I should have put this on the slide, but part of the work in building this strategy was to ask the question, what should Littleton be in its future state, right? And the answer to that question, as going through the workshops and those exercises, was that the community really wanted to see Littleton be a creative, cutting edge small town, right? So these are the 6 pillars that were created under that strategy to support that vision. And the reason why I'm bringing them up today is to really just highlight how much the transportation work interweaves with quite literally everything that we do for economic development. And You wanna go to the next, I have more detail on some of these, and this is available on our website, the whole strategy itself, but with pillar one, again, focusing on that business vitality and adaptability, that's what this whole discussion tonight has been about, is how transportation supports that business vitality, how we support the business's ability to adapt and to change with the direction of development. So without that connectivity to the business, to the front door, they can't survive. Workforce and talent attraction. Corey's first question in the survey was, how do your employees get to work, right? And it goes without saying how critical that workforce is to our businesses here in that talent attraction piece. Littleton too is somewhat unique because we have an incredibly high concentration of restaurant and retail businesses here that help create that, small town feel, that Main Street and downtown environment, even in other places in the city that's starting to pop up too, and along Littleton Boulevard. And we're competing, even businesses in the city can potentially be with each other, right, for that workforce and talent attraction. So if we can't find a way for them to get there, and we've been talking about RTD and their stops in Littleton, that last mile problem is a problem, right? So how do we ship employees in from Denver who don't want to deal with the wage tip situation and all of their challenges that they're facing in Denver, and have employment here, but if they can't get there from the light rail station, that's a challenge. Fostering a livable economy, making sure that we have housing options and affordability, again, that are connected. We have a bullet right there to prioritize multimodal mobility. Again, in my world coming from other cities, businesses want all of the above policies, right? Include it all. And we might go into the next one. Thanks. Talking about Littleton Boulevard is a great example of that historic character and cultural fabric. Littleton Boulevard, that kind of seems to be in its current state with the boom of the car, right? So
I think that's gonna be one of our biggest questions on the sub area plan, is what is a historic character
right.
mean for Littleton Boulevard?
back in.
Yes, right, that's the irony of it.
Right, it's like the historic character is
the
automobile.
It was mid-mod and the explosion of cars.
Yeah,
Yes.
so what do we do with that moving forward?
Exactly, right. Industry and investment in city infrastructure, absolutely. We say this about Project Downtown, and there are ways that we want to partner with the business community, and we can partner with the business community. At the end of the day, at minimum, there has to be some level of infrastructure work, right? That's being updated across the city. What does that look like, and how do we balance out that work to make the pain points as small as possible for businesses and residents? And then regional economy positioning, again, this is about raising the state's awareness of Littleton, but also making sure that we're connected to the rest of the state, right? If someone lands in DIA, do we put a sign at the airport and tell them to come over here, right? Do they have a way to get here?
Hour and 45-minute train.
We're worth it.
You did the challenge with a big suitcase.
Yeah, you have to transfer at Union Station, you have to transfer at Broadway, or one of those 3 or 4 right there.
So just pushing our position a little bit, making sure that we're partnering with our regional partners as well, having a close relationship with the Denver Chamber of Commerce, for example. really helps elevate some of our discussions on that statewide level. So for example, that's things like just pulling Excel in for, you know, regular meetings for our projects and our issues, and that connects for us through those regional partners in Denver and elsewhere. So I just thought it might be a good exercise to run through that strategy document, just remind us of those pillars that we're plugging away at every day in economic development, but just how incredibly symbiotic they are with transportation initiatives for not only the business community, but the residents, the visitors, and all of us. So hopefully that helped provide some clarity in where our focus areas are and what we're up to.
That was huge. That was great.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kind of put no more than 10 minutes worth of questions. We do need to get some of the things. Anyone have any questions?
I think we've been peppering them with that.
I would say, as my board would say, you can't have a city without business.
Right.
So it is very important that we support the businesses here. That's why the chamber was started in 2017, was to create that voice for business with the city. I think we did a pretty good job of that. But because there is so little property tax mill coming this way, it is very important for the sustenance of the sustainability of this community that we have good business.
Absolutely.
I think that like if someone said what is unique about Littleton, I think that trail system is unique. And all the spots that people would consider unique in the town are almost all business focused, you know, like the residential areas are not very unique in Littleton, you know, and businesses are kind of the gem.
Yeah, I'm curious, I don't know, trying to formulate this question, like, how does the business landscape in Littleton compare to like surrounding communities or other places in Colorado? Like, are we kind of similar of other places, or are we different, or do you have that data?
So there is a very heavy concentration of that retail and restaurant, food and beverage here in Littleton, and that's part of what makes it unique from a visitor standpoint too, right?
I'm assuming more like a higher concentration of smaller businesses.
Well, that's what it was gonna
Yes.
say, like, I mean, again, it was only 50 of the, or 50 respondents of the whatever, but.
Percent.
Yeah.
I think of Littleton as small
Majority,
business oriented.
the small.
So I don't know if that's the truth.
And what is
No,
the
it
number,
actually
4,000 businesses in Littleton?
I think it's shy of 4,000, but not by much.
But that's a lot, so there are a lot of small
A lot of
businesses.
business.
2% of the population.
45.
And ask how many nonprofits. Nonprofits.
So yeah, very, very small business centric, a lot of services, and professional services too. And so that makeup certainly, you know, there's not a lot of corporate presence, for example, here that you might find in another community. So the challenge there is that sometimes from a fiscal standpoint, some of those businesses aren't necessarily heavy hitters with respect to the overall budget and that overarching direction for spending, right? So that makes us more susceptible to recessions. It makes us at a higher risk for varying national policies that might come out regarding tariffs, for example. It makes us susceptible to a lot of things. And so part of a healthy economy is to make sure that we have diversity in the businesses that are here and be able to support, again, those businesses that are creating that magic of why Littleton is Littleton. You can't ignore that, otherwise everything dies. So you have to grow that and sustain that, and at the same time be building up that presence and that attraction for folks who can come in and help provide that diversity to stabilize the city in times of recession or uncertainty or different policies.
So we need Costco and our small businesses.
Yeah.
So do you know what the top 3 sales tax producers are in the state?
Home Depot is one.
I think King Supers is another one. No?
I'm guessing the hospital.
The hospital doesn't pay any sales tax.
And that's what I was just gonna ask when I was raising my hand is, like, the car dealerships, my understanding is that those, when you register your car, you pay sales tax to your city. So those are taking a ridiculous amount of Littleton land, and we only get 2 mill levies, you know, from all of that usage, you know, which is wild from a sales tax.
There are some, right?
Go back to that, Lowe's is the other one.
Oh, yeah.
The third one, who is a member that we work with quite closely, is Silverstem Cannabis. Which is on.
I can see that, people.
Sales. For those of you who don't know, his sales is over $1 million a month.
Wow.
He pays over $600,000 a year to the city in sales.
We should bring him some brownies or something.
And
You know how this.
I would say too, though, that like, you know, if you, Home Depot takes up all of Main Street for land. So if you took all of the people at Main Street and collectively took all of their, you know, like per acre, you know, it's very different. Like Home Depot is probably not crazy in terms of per acre, you know, in comparison to like Main Street, I would assess, you know, I would assume, so.
well, Littleton Boulevard is now, so we watch the sales tax come up. So downtown Littleton has been pretty flat.
Yeah.
The growing areas is Littleton Boulevard with Littleton Brew, Cherry Cricket and Silverstem.
Yeah, that's great.
That's where your sales tax is coming from right now.
And that's
That would be an
where-
interesting, yeah, per square footage.
And Silverstem has over
Silverstem would be at the
27
top.
employees.
It's-
They also,
How many employees?
27.
And that's that little spot on Little Boulevard. Like just with like 6 parking spots in
So
front.
you never know how big a company is.
You don't know where it is.
I had to go in and learn about it. I never.
Oh, yeah. Turns out.
I'm a CBD though. I don't know. They sell a lot of things, but it has been very interesting learning about it. When they came to us, some of the other chambers wouldn't let them join. And so we had taken it to our ward attorney and we're like, it is a viable business and they are one of our largest sales tax contributors. They should be able to have a voice. So absolutely, did we let them become a member?
That's a shifting tide, I think, as well.
Yes, I mean, it would be comparable to a liquor store though. We don't have any, but to me, I see they're somewhat equivalent.
Young people would be like, of course, yeah.
But it is interesting. I don't think people see those numbers. But you have to realize Douglas County doesn't allow
That's what I
THC.
was about to
So
say,
this is the first
recreational.
one coming.
It's the end of the Green Mile.
I'm sorry, who doesn't allow?
Douglas County.
Douglas County.
And so that is the furthest south.
For.
Oh, Centennial?
And so Littleton is benefiting from that one little shop right
We need
here.
to sell all the people.
Attended my perspective on this county.
Yeah, I didn't.
Recreational.
They do, there's a few that are out further east though.
And I'm assuming unincorporated Jefferson County does. I know Lakewood does not.
But it is, that's why, because he's been trying to see if Costco development, so he actually had me check with the developer of the Costco, because he wants to be the furthest south dispensary. Costco does not allow any dispensaries within a
X
certain.
number of.
Oh, interesting. There will not be a dispensary in that project, so he will still be the furthest south.
One thing, and I just reading on some of the inquiries, once a year, the Transportation Mobility Board has the city present its capital improvement plan for the year. And I know that it is a very advantageous thing for all the businesses to know what is in the plans, what is the idea and everything. Well, they can tune into that meeting, whether both virtually or come in person and provide some of their input and see what is gonna happen transportation wise for the year. And they give intricate detail.
Well, that would be in that communication phase. That was one thing. Two of the ideas were improvement would be communication, obviously. I do feel that the city does communicate a lot. People just don't read.
Yeah. And it's
But they did say like an interactive map too on the website with where construction's being done, something like that.
We have one. It's
Indeed?
brand new.
No.
It's brand
Okay,
new.
good.
So
I
yes,
can let people know where that
go
one is.
to Cone Zone.
Okay.
That is something that we've talked a lot about, right? Is transparency, and I think, you know, Public Works can do a better job of communicating with both your groups, so.
And I think that's, you know, that's what the merchants and the business owners, if they know something's coming, they can let their customers know to work around, especially if it's a services, you know, a hair salon or a spa or something, they can let their customers know. So there's a lot that can be done, I think, to alleviate some of that concern.
So on that note, I'm gonna bring this to a close with sort of an invitation to ask of you. Is there anything that you'd like to ask of us? And whether that's now or it's an open invitation at any point in the future, if there's anything that we can be doing to help you further your initiatives, we'd love to hear about it. We're not sure we can do it, but we'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, we send stuff every 6 months to council for recommendations, kind of through this lens. So I think that would be probably the framing of it. Yeah.
I don't, I learned a lot tonight, thank you.
Same here. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. And I have to say, by the way, it sounds like you have a really interesting and really complicated job.
I get the fun part, she does the hard part.
It was fun.
Thanks for coming
so much.
Thank you both. I will send you a link to the Cone Zone that you can share with your
Thank you, I
members.
will share that.
Yes,
for sure.
absolutely.
You're welcome to stay, but I assume you want to go home, so.
Yes.
The last thing I'll say on this topic as they're walking out, I live 2 blocks off of Colfax, and so the Colfax BRT project has started. And just watching that process happen has made me think so much about downtown and how we approach that, if we ever have the money to do it, but. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right,
Yeah, the Colfax BRT, I'm excited for the mobility improvements that's happening, but seeing how it's affecting businesses is hard.
I bet.
Yeah, my upstairs neighbor owns a bakery and a coffee shop on Colfax, and like both their street access has been closed, and so it's,
Rough.
yeah, I mean, he said he lost 10,000 in the first month.
It can be a business killer.
Yeah. And it's been happening for over 6 months now, I wanna say, maybe not that long, but it's gonna keep happening for years, so if he's losing 10 grand a month for multiple years. And the Denver has offered, you can apply for a $10,000 grant.
Yeah.
So that will cover 1 month
1 month.
of lost revenue.
And just know that this 10,000 will progressively increase because customers will get frustrated and stuff and.
And stop going.
We'll find a new spot.
Fine, it's fun.
And it's not even like, oh, my parking access is removed or, you know, vehicular access. It's like, well, it's hard to walk along Colfax or bike along Colfax because of all the construction. So I don't know what the solution is, but I just know thinking
can
of
identify the
downtown, you know, I do not want that. And that's one of the main feedback we got from businesses was parking and fear of going out of business due to construction. Because they are all small businesses, so it's, yeah.
I will say something, and this is something Aaron probably can have a lot of input, is how to incorporate a robust phasing plan for the construction.
Yeah, well, that's what I need to find the right folks in my network that have worked on Colfax BRT, because I have a lot of questions about how they're not phasing things. And obviously our downtown is a much different context, you know, it's 4 blocks, it's not miles. And, you know, the infrastructure work and whatever, but yeah, I agree. I think it's that phasing and how you're doing the work. And I know the businesses had a lot of fear about the Denver water project that came in, but they were able to do all night work. And so it was really minimal, you know, I'm sure there was some effects, but it ended up being
Really low impact.
Yeah,
right. And so I
a lot of hype that kind of.
My daughter worked at,
Realize.
my daughter worked at Melting Pot and I'd go to pick her up sometimes.
Okay.
And like, that was the only time I ever noticed anything was because she got out of work at like 11:30 or something. But it was really minimal. They did that incredibly well, I think,
Yeah, I think so too, so.
All right, should we move on to the next item?
I just got one tangent to that. So they've been tearing up Littleton Boulevard, putting in, I'm assuming fiber optics going through there. And from my vantage point, I've been watching, we have had 1 lane eastbound on Littleton Boulevard for the last 3 or 4 days. And it worked.
Oh, I was like, where are you going?
Amazing. No congestion at all right there.
I know, so we have our kickoff for Littleton Boulevard next week, actually, so we haven't started anything yet, but Aaron and I were chatting about, in Denver, there's multiple places where it's travel lane during the day, and then after a certain point at night, it's parking.
Yeah, Lancaster, California does that too, where they made it so it can easily change between uses. And like, I think of things like that as like the ultimate data collection time for you all, so that if people say this won't work, you could say, we already piloted this just organically, and this was the data, you know?
So I'm not saying that will be a solution, but that's, it's a thought, because we are, as Corey alluded to, we are still consistently hearing about parking issues with Littleton Brewing, so.
I parked 3 or 4 blocks away and walked over.
Did you survive?
It was actually quite pleasant, I would say.
Did you use the new crosswalk on Littleton?
I have not, but I'm very excited.
Okay.
Yeah, I've used it, it's
Because
awesome.
I actually sprinted across the road.
Okay.
I saw it, actually drove it up today and I saw a motorized wheelchair using it.
That's amazing.
We haven't heard too much from people at the brewery using it. We've actually heard that the dance academy right there, they're students, and because they have camps, and so they cross the street and go get coffee or go get food, and so, yeah, I'm happy it's being.
I have seen 1 or 2 of the blind community using it as well.
Yeah. I saw a lady one time walking across with a walker, and she did not make it all the way across Littleton Boulevard, and I was like, she would have to go down like a 1/4 of a mile, come back, instead of having a crosswalk.
Well, I know Silver Stems wanted us to install a crosswalk, of course, like right in front of there. Which we were like, there's 1 block that way, but now they're right in the middle, so that you can go 1 block this way or 1 block that way. Crosswalk.
Now we know that we need to actually cater to them, because they're.
They will get a golden crosswalk.
Like what, green 9 minutes? Like.
All right, time to move on. So are you ready to walk us through this section of the?
Yeah, and so Shane and I talked about the agenda, and we weren't ready to fully talk about, I think originally we had discussed talking about how the work you all have done, how we're going to integrate that into our scope of work and the TMP update. We didn't feel like we were totally ready to talk about that yet, because we're still figuring that out, honestly, internally, and we are still advocating for a TMP update. We do not have any final word yet, so hoping to have that soon. We do have a slide in our forthcoming presentation to council, so I have a good feeling about it, but no official news yet on timing. At this point, it's not if it's going to happen, but when it's going to happen, and so we'll be on the timeline we had originally discussed of procurement this fall, start early 2026, or is it going to be later in 26 or beyond that? So still working on that. So kind of what Shane and I discussed is, okay, let's talk about all the different topic areas that have come up either through your discussions or our internal staff discussions, kind of putting some themes around there, and then looking at, okay, what's covered in our existing TMP, what have we as staff talked about as kind of priorities, what have you all talked about as priorities, and then looking at the research we've done of other jurisdictions, TMPs, where does that align? So we came up with this.
I'm sorry, the other jurisdictions, you're just saying like other people in their
Like
TMP
CDOT?
have this.
No, I believe this was based off of, and Shane put that together, so I can always ask him too, but I believe that was like the other cities similar in size that we looked at. So like Burlington, Vermont, I forget the name of the place in Minnesota. I'll ask Shane.
Albuquerque, I think too.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Now I understand what that was. So it wasn't people. Now I understand.
I was thinking it was like Dr. Cog and stuff.
I was thinking.
And I don't know if there's other like local examples in that, so let me follow up with Shane and get you that answer. I I guess really what we just wanted to talk about is kind of, I guess, to visually see where things align, right? Our current TMP captures some of this, not all of it though, if you can see, you know, especially in this area, there's kind of a lot that we're not covering, so, you know, that well, that we would like to. You know, I think the Vision Zero stuff, if we're just starting at the top, you know, that's been a big deal that council has talked to us about, and that we've talked a lot about, and how to include Safer Streets program into the TMP. That kind of Vision Zero programming, the safe systems approach, kind of safety action plan elements, right, that makes us eligible for future funding. And that is something that a lot of other jurisdictions do have. The high injury network, we do have a high injury network, as we've discussed. We've been actually very successful in doing projects at those locations. And so what does that next high injury network look like? Is it a true network, or is it still point locations like our current one is? I know there's some different philosophies emerging around high injury networks, and so we haven't figured out exactly what that looks like, but we know that's something that needs to be looked at.
I rode by Bowles and Federal the other day and I was like, this is really good. I'm glad they did this.
Oh, that's
It's
awesome.
really great work.
Thank you. I was not a part of that at all, but I will pass it on to the network.
So maybe instead of just for a time.
Yeah, I don't think.
Every single one, I guess what I'd ask of you is on the TMB side, how did you decide to put check marks in these boxes? Because I'm not saying we didn't talk about these things, but there's also, if I think about what we spent the last couple months talking about,
Yeah, the very
they're
first.
not
one.
up in there, right? Like
Yeah.
funding is not in there, communications is not in there. Cultural, culture issues is not in there.
Safe systems is probably the main thing that we focused on, and that is not
Right.
being checked.
Yeah.
No, when I saw this form, I was like, oh, shoot. You didn't quite get what we were saying.
Yeah, you know, yeah, and this is like, let's think of this as like a first iteration of this,
Okay.
not
Okay.
set in stone. Cause I hear you, I'm also now looking at this and I also think there's changes, so.
Because to be
I
clear,
apologize.
and I think all of us, I think I speak for all of us, to be clear, we're all behind many of those, maybe not every single one.
Right, but I think the majority.
Many of them.
Yeah.
We were, what I heard is we were tasked to pick kind of the 5
Right,
that we thought were the most important.
right,
And that was what we did, and they're not reflected up there.
yeah, okay. No, thank you for that feedback. We will.
And if you'd like us to go through and check the other ones that we agree on.
Yeah.
We'll go down, we'll probably vote the vast majority of that list up.
Maybe what we can do is we can revise this and then at like our check-in with you and Derek, we can review this if that works for
I think
you.
that makes sense.
And I will say just a quick thing, if like a big topic would be more logical to split up into a full couple subtopics to equal a big topic. Like that's perfectly good. We don't have to have like the exact name and such, but we need to know how one got to the other.
Right, yeah. And this is, you know, like I said before, this is kind of a bridging topic this month to go into next month, where we do want to focus on like the integration of all the work that you did into the TMP update scope. So, yeah, I mean, we can keep talking about this. I don't think we have to belabor this, as we've discussed, is I think there's some changes here, because you're right. I think there's some stuff we probably missed off this list.
Okay, so we'll pick this up.
Yeah, if that works.
This is first draft.
First draft.
We'll pick it up when we get to the second, maybe third.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, this is really helpful though, to see kind of what you're hearing from us and what we think. we're
Yeah, and I think we could maybe even expand this to have a little more detail if you know, that would be helpful.
Even if we like need to give our explanation of, you know, like I think Matt and I did talk about context-based street typologies, and that's not checked off. You know, we did talk about UL-UC integration, you know, so like, I feel like we
Yeah.
covered a lot of these, and I just want to make sure
You're right.
we feel it, that you
Yeah.
hear us.
No, yeah,
Okay.
we'll check back in on
Go back
this.
to the drawing board. All right, on that note, you have any staff comments?
Do I have any staff comments? I don't think so. I kind of gave updates at the beginning of, we're finally doing that Arapahoe County-wide transit study, which I'm so excited about. Littleton Boulevard is kicking off next week as well. TMP discussions are also ongoing. We're kind of just moving along with a lot of our projects. We do have the city council meeting on August 12th. So feel free to attend. We will ask you to watch our section in advance of the August meeting, and we'll have a little recap on that and talk about that. It's really just an update of our February meeting was really telling council like what is our plan for 2025. So this is really just a check-in and an update of where we are at. And so some things have changed, but most things are moving forward. We are in the thick of construction season, if you were unaware. And it's only going to continue. But it's also exciting because a lot of these are projects that, you know, we received grants for, you know, 5+ years ago, have been working on them for a long time, doing planning design, and to actually see a lot of these really awesome mobility improvements is exciting.
The mineral trail, that was very hot topic. I definitely was aligned with people that I would love it to stay natural, but I drove by it the other day and I was like, it is looking beautiful. You know, like, I did love the natural materials and I still do, but it's looking gorgeous, so.
Yeah, and you know, I think it's all lessons learned, right? So I think if we move forward on other trail projects, that is definitely something we're going to keep in mind. Accessibility is also at the top of our mind. So is there a way that we can make both work?
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's constraints and right away and yada, 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 but we can continue to try to incorporate everyone's.
I walked Euclid Avenue yesterday.
Okay.
Looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't been over.
Sidewalks are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and I went by the Costco development and saw their shared use path. there, And that was.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks.
Like there's things happening.
Yeah, there's stuff.
Things are happening. Yeah, we had a pre-bid meeting for Santa Fe and Mineral last week. So we'll be getting those contractor bids in the coming month and selecting a contractor and getting started with that.
The Quad Road.
Yeah, Quad Road. Mineral Mobility East is starting and ongoing.
Well, people will be able to go straight, they'll be able to go east-west across Mineral, across the bay. You just can't go left.
You just can't go left.
Connected, yeah.
Yeah, on Santa Fe.
Look at that, he's got it ready to go.
Euclid is coming together. I was out there a couple weeks ago. I'm gonna go out on Tuesday with Kyle again, but just walking on the south side sidewalk, and we got to walk side by side instead of
That's
single file was,
amazing experience, huh?
it was awesome.
You can walk side by side on the north side too.
Have your hands ready.
But yeah, the daylighting looks amazing. That's gonna make every intersection down there so much safer.
Yeah.
Cars are forced to make a right turn instead of just, shoot through a bike lane and go as fast as they can. So it's awesome.
And then we are also starting installation of 2 of our protected bike lanes.
Oh, wait.
So Phillips Avenue, so down by Powell Middle School, kind of southeast corner, over by Tom Grant's house.
Temporary or? Flexi posts or what is it?
So it is delineators and zebras.
What is delineator?
I
know that they separate.
The flexible.
Oh,
the flexi post. And then zebras, also known as like armadillos.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's one material there on Phillips. And then Bellevue, which is orcas, 'cause, we're starting our Littleton Zoo. And those are
Armadillos and orcas.
On Bellevue or?
Zebras.
On.
on Bellevue
Bellevue, right at Bomar.
by Bomar.
Oh, way over there.
Of Lowell. And so the orcas are specifically designed for bike lanes. And so it's kind of like curbing and delineators together.
Is that gonna connect Centennial Elementary School?
Not yet. The future plans, we want to figure out how to connect from Lowell all the way to Irving. And then Irving, we have buffered bike lanes on. That's kind of been a really great example of incremental pilot project progression. So it started and we painted bike lanes, still didn't see speed reductions, added buffer bike lanes, still didn't see speed reductions. So now we're adding protection to the bike lanes and traffic calming along there. So eventually we would want that whole connection to Centennial.
So I have to say, I love that we're doing this.
Yeah.
Four projects ultimately, right? Like is what I read. There's four protected bike lane projects. Those are the first two. There's two others, one at Windermere and one somewhere else on the southeast side.
Yeah, we've, timing of articles is great, because that went to publish and then things have changed a little,
I'm
so
not doing four.
we're doing 5 actually.
Cool, that's even better.
But we're switching out some of them. So Pennsylvania was supposed to happen in the fall, so that would connect to Phillips. It turns out there's a bunch of stormwater infrastructure work that has to occur, and so we were going to install after the pavement management program came in and repaved that roadway, but now they're delaying so that our water resources group can go in and fix the decaying corrugated metal pipes that are everywhere across the city. So we're gonna install buffered bike lanes this year, and we've talked about doing some delineation in the buffer, but that'll have to be delayed till next year, unfortunately. But Windermere is happening still, and then Irving, as I just mentioned, and then Church on the south side we're able to protect.
So like I said, love it. I love it.
I'm waiting for the but.
There's a but. When I compared those four, and now it sounds like 5 or 6 potentially, of the first 4 that I saw, 1.5 of them are actually, if you take our bike priority map and overlay it, only 1.5 of them are actually on our bike priority map. And I'm curious, was there any thought put to maybe we should be focusing on our bike priority areas when we do these projects versus just other places?
Yeah,
Heavy hitting questions.
Sorry, I was so excited when I saw that.
It's all by herself over there. Oh my God.
Oh, Shane.
So this is what I like to call lessons learned from when you create a very swift program called Safer Streets in a very short amount of time. So we specifically chose, and I'm going to talk about like the 4 that were listed in that Littleton report article. So Windermere, Bellevue, Pennsylvania, and Phillips. We were asked by council, we need to go put in protected bike lanes, which is something we want to do, right? And we've talked about reasons why we hadn't done it yet. No dedicated funding, lack of maintenance materials, et cetera, et cetera. We're at the point where we are ready. We have plows, we have sweepers, we have funding, we're there, right? So when we were tasked to put together the Safer Streets program and specifically look at protected bike lanes, we decided to go with some low-hanging fruit corridors, as you can call it. So places that either already had painted bike lanes and available right of way to add buffers and protection. Places that didn't have on-street parking necessarily, or a lot of residential on-street, because that would really, start to affect, again, the on-street parking.
Battles and.
Right, and especially, last year, which didn't really pan out, I think the way council had asked us to, is, they said, go put stuff in and we'll deal with the public.
Yeah.
And so, you know how that turned out. And that's not how we like to do things either. So if you're going to go to a place where you are going to be impacting things like parking or, access to houses or, if there's transit routes, that's a whole other, that's a whole thing with Church that I can dive more into. You need to do public engagement. You need a robust public engagement process. You need to make sure that those residents are on board, because if you don't have buy-in, it's not going to be a successful project. And that is why, we are doing the Elati corridor study we know we need mobility improvements on Elati, but we didn't feel comfortable just saying, we're gonna remove on-street parking for 2.5 miles to put in protected bike lanes. That was not gonna go over well. So the whole idea is we need to study it first. We need to do robust public engagement, find out what residents actually want who live on the street, look at parking utilization data, be able to talk about those trade-offs, and there is going to have to be trade-offs, right? But at least we're having that conversation with the public and we're able to have data to back that up, right? So all that being said, we were not able to do that on those 4 corridors that we suggested. And so I agree, and I will be the first one to say that I think there's a lot of lessons learned from our first year of Safer Streets, and these protected bike lanes are like number one at the list. Do I think they're good projects overall, and will they be adding hopefully safety and mobility improvements to the city? Yes. Are they going to be a complete network when they're installed? No. That's a big issue. You're right, I think we didn't necessarily do this rigorous data analysis that we would do now of what is our priority streets, right? From the TMP, what is the priority from the ranking of projects, et cetera. So I don't, it's not a good answer, but it's.
No,
I have
it is what it is, right, at this point,
Yeah.
it's just, but yeah, I mean, my humble request is the next time,
Absolutely.
can we put that at least as one of the criteria to evaluate?
Yes.
It doesn't have to be the overwhelming.
Yes,
It would be nice if it was a very heavily weighted factor.
absolutely.
And I also.
I hear you loud and clear.
I also want to point out that the TMP update and the combining of all these programs into a singular document, singular regulatory framework would be a great help in doing this. And some of these updates might actually include some of the streets that weren't in the 2019 studies too.
Totally, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's part of the reason that we want to do a TMP update. It's like, well, we have the TMPs over here saying this. If we're doing projects over here, whether they should have been prioritized or not, we're moving forward with them, right? How do we reconcile that? And again, I think at the end of the day, there's still going to be safety and mobility improvements from there, but I think as a program moving forward, and that's why we wanted to do the strategic plan, is we want to be strategic and we want to be good, you know, we want to use tax dollars effectively, and in the highest need areas. We want to better coordinate with our other programs that affect our work. Someone had a really good analogy, like us at transportation, we're like the cherry on top of a sundae, right? Sarah White in our water, who manages water resources and is having to replace all of this like decaying infrastructure and having to deal with all those culvert collapses from flooding and whatnot. Like she's at the bottom, like she's the scoop of ice cream.
She's the bowls.
Yeah,
She's the ice cream.
she's the bowl. She is the foundation, right? Like she needs to go in and do her work. And same with other utilities and other, you know, kind of things below the ground that you don't see. And then the pavement management group comes in, right? And then they make the street look all pretty. And then we come in with all the, you know, kind of toppings, little protected bike lanes. So we need to come last. So that's where like Pennsylvania, these protected bike lanes were supposed to go in last year. We just had way too much on our plate last year to get these done. 'Cause, you know, Kyle and Emily didn't join our team until June, getting them up to speed. Kyle had other workload that he was passing off, getting Emily integrated into the city and, you know, all those other factors. We weren't able to do it last year, right? Come to this year, it's like, well, then we find out, well, Sarah has a project here. Well, we don't want to pay a bunch of money and hire a contractor to install all of these protected bike lane materials just for next year to have to pay someone to pull them out and reinstall. Like that is not a good use of taxpayer money. And Bellevue is an example where that road is not in good shape. If anyone's been up there recently. It was supposed to be on the pavement management plan either last year or this year. Because we were doing this work, they delayed. So they've delayed a little further. So we already know that this is going to have to be removed so that they can repave and then put it back in a couple years, which is not the timeline we would like to do, but we're, you know, there's some trade-offs and we made that trade-off with Bellevue. And we used a lesser, like waterborne paint instead of epoxy or thermoplastic, which is more heavy duty because we know they're going to be repaving it. So let's not spend a bunch of money on like top tier paint. But when it came to Pennsylvania, we had this discussion, are we gonna do the same thing that we're doing on Bellevue? And we decided, no, we don't feel like that's a good use of taxpayer money.
How did those streets get decided even back then? Cause that was like February of last year. They're more or less neighborhood streets. They're not really connectors. They don't even connect to anything.
Yeah.
So like, how are those projects even recognized?
The bike lane projects?
Yeah, to like Bellevue, like, it's not a high use road to begin with. Like,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of cars on it. There's not.
That phase of it, yeah.
Yeah.
A little more.
Yeah, and so I'm just like, how did that get recognized to do something on when there's, you know, like Jeff said, there's all these connectivities.
Because there's no street parking. It's,
Yeah.
it's minimally disruptive. They were looking, I mean.
There's enough right, there's enough right of way.
It
It's
was
super
looking
wide,
for-
just quick wins, yeah.
Quick win.
Honestly, they were quick wins.
And there is that new development going in as well, there at the corner of Bellevue and Federal.
Yes.
So that
Yeah.
could become.
Yes, and we,
Trying to get to Beaumont.
Bellevue too specifically, that was actually, you know, we kind of called it a pilot project, but originally it just had striped bike lanes. And then we, in 2023, added buffered bike lanes. And so again, it was another like low hanging fruit corridor of like, we already have a buffer. We just have to go and put in protection. Windermere specifically was chosen the north part of the corridor because it already has a buffer. Again, we don't have to deal with on-street parking or house access. And that's why we're doing a lot of these forthcoming corridor studies, because we know that there's needed mobility improvements, but we have to go through that public engagement process.
I wonder why that makes sense, because it's a busy road next to a park, like, if it checks a lot of boxes for.
And then Pennsylvania and Phillips, Powell Middle School.
Yeah.
Eventually I would like us to look at a better connection to the C470 trail, but there's a connection off of County Line down there.
Federal and Clarkson, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're redoing that with.
Yeah. Clarkson has bike lanes on it. That is Centennial, so that's not us, but it does.
It is on a bike
that.
lane, okay.
Mineral technically has a shared use path that we don't really have signed, but bikes are allowed on the sidewalk there, and then eventually would connect into the rest of Mineral. So there is reasonings. I think it's hard to, when we have not enough money to just go in and do everything at once, and we have to do things incrementally. So we're taking chunk size pieces that eventually the idea is that we're going to connect this all into like a very safe, comfortable bike network system.
Dream.
It's the dream.
Yes.
So there's an overpass going over University is,
Yes,
the county
supposed to be
line.
done this fall.
That's crazy, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
University. and-
University at C470, the
Yeah, the
C470.
C470.
Oh, for the bike.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Get
for
it
the
over.
trails, not university and C.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
I was
like.
like,
The grant.
All right,
Still, like,
keeping an eye on time. Let's finish, we need to finish up. Anyone who wants to stick around outside and have conversations about this, well. Let's get to our upcoming agendas. And I'm actually going to ask you guys to take that, since, just full disclosure, I completely missed our planning meeting in early July. I got caught up with a bunch of stuff, and the next thing I knew, Derek's texting me saying, "Are you gonna be here soon?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, I'm like an hour away, there's no way."
You're like, no, I'm not.
So could you guys talk about what we have sort of tentatively scheduled for the next few months?
Okay, so we're in July. So August, the Cedar Street Council recap, again, we'll have presented to council, so we'll just ask you to review that presentation and, we can recap any questions to ask. And then we were thinking about having the Elati corridor study. So just an overview of the public engagement thus far, preview of some alternatives or options, talk about a walk audit, which we have yet to schedule. I think this item could either stay in August or move to September if need be. TMP wrap up. So that's really where we will be talking about how to incorporate the TMB work. We'll have another draft of our lovely chart that needs editing. And then hopefully we have an update on status of TMP and timeline as well. Talk about the field trip in October, and so we'll put together kind of a draft list of potential site locations. I think this year will be exciting because we'll actually get to see like completed infrastructure and not just plans of projects.
Visioning.
Yes, visions. So that was what we had for August. September, we have a lot of TBD things. The HSIP Broadway intersection project, so this is at Littleton Boulevard and Mineral. I think we're gonna play this by ear to feel like if we're in a place that we can bring kind of our concepts and I think originally we had thought we'd have a conversation with CDOT about funding by this time, but that is getting delayed. So we'll just see if we're ready or if we want to delay that a month or two, just so that we have more definitive information to share with you all. The ULI TAP, so that was about Geneva Village, kind of this northern gateway. They had a presentation after that, but they're also working on a final report. So we don't know exactly when that's going to be released. So hopefully it's by September, and Kathleen and or Julie can come and talk about that process and the recommendations. But we're just kind of waiting to see timeline on that as well. And then County Line Trail Connections Project, I think we've discussed this probably a year or two ago when we've discussed it maybe on some TMB field trips. But an update on that project, we are getting very, very close to finishing that, which is exciting. So, and then next gen joint session, probably need to talk about that based off of the conversation we had tonight. If we're still having a joint session or if it's just more regular communications. And then potentially reaching out to communications to have Jessica and speak to the board. And then TMB field trip. Finalizing that route.
And then what do we have in October? So one more month out?
October, funding solutions to implement desired multimodal network. So we talked about potentially having either someone from the CMO's office or having the new finance director come, and we did reach out to them. Brent Sutherland was going to discuss this with her. Her name's Lori. Thinking that October or later in the year, she'll have gotten up to speed. She did relocate here and started this job months ago. So talk about debt financing, and then potentially having Matt Knight or someone else from the Littleton Boulevard sub area plan. I think we'll know more since we have our kickoff next week. That's just an internal kickoff though. It's still, the contract still has to be approved by council. And so I don't know if we'll have like a full kickoff with the whole consultant team yet. So this action item might get pushed to, just unless you're okay just hearing kind of an overview, but we won't have much to discuss likely.
I guess I'll ask a question of the board. I love the idea of talking about the Littleton Boulevard sub-area plan. Actually, I put it in my notes today to talk about that. But also, for me personally, I was looking for just to meet Matt and to get essentially what we just got for economic development from the community development group, understanding how transportation fits into what their role is and what they're trying to do there. So I don't know if you guys, like, if the Littleton sub-area thing is not ready, would we still want to meet with him and try to have that more just a transportation community development conversation? Or is that not a good use of our time?
I think it would be helpful because honestly, some of the discussion of like the sidewalk fee, some of the other funding mechanisms, Matt's gonna be integral in some of the enforcement and planning and implementation of quite a few of those.
Okay.
I think it's a good use of our time.
Okay.
And then if he has stuff on Littleton Boulevard, that way you can present that too.
Yeah.
And then November, so just to note, the November and December meetings are changed based off of their original dates. So we do have Todd Lambert scheduled to come. Unfortunately, I confirmed with him, but it sounds like they have LPS board meetings on the same cadence of our meetings. So that's why November worked, because it's off our schedule. And then we were thinking of talking about like 2026 projects for that. And then December, end of year wrap up. I'm sure there will be some shifts maybe, and we can discuss about that.
Yeah, I was thinking.
You guys got a lot done without me there.
I was thinking that we could have, like, we would have another study session with council, but with council shifting. Maybe it's better to wait until the new council's in place.
Kind of early next year, February, March, April, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
Probably right after their retreat.
Do they get swapped out in January?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the board members will be up, our board members will be at the same time, or no, that's like April.
That's April.
Yeah, that's right, yeah, because you came in April.
How many of you are up?
I'm up.
I think I am.
I have no idea.
Me? I'm not sure. Are
Can you, Dave, you just reapplied, right? So you're, yeah,
I'm good, I think.
I think you and I might be.
All right.
All right.
Any objections, anything that you feel like we're missing in this?
That was good to me.
Okay. All right. Any other comments or just related to this, or sort of give everybody 30 seconds to gripe or rant or rave or whatever you want to do?
We don't have any more topic meetings, right? We're all done with that.
Specials.
Did you guys finish up your connectivity one, like incorporate the notes that we had from that meeting and
We have not
update it?
done that. We should do that before.
Can we get that done?
Yeah, and were there changes after the street typologies one? What's the last one that was
That's
discussed?
the last one we did.
Yeah.
So we had some comments, I think, I know you took down a bunch of notes, on just some tweaks and changes.
Okay.
Otherwise, I think we're done. Unless you're ready for us to start attacking the rest of that list.
So are we going to, at least like write a letter about the TMP to council? And also lend our voice to your all's voice, presumably we would like the TMP update to be sooner.
That is, so our next letter is due in September, which is probably very good timing for that.
Yeah.
And so I think my sense is, my gut was gonna be, that was gonna be the headline of that letter.
Will it already be decided in September?
If
we're gonna do the
potentially.
Oh, so we need to do it earlier than that? Okay.
If potentially, yes.
Is that something that we are aligned on, that we think that they should prioritize it?
Is there anyone who doesn't think that we should prioritize the updating of the TMP?
So high priority.
I think we're aligned.
Yeah.
All right, I will take the lead on drafting that letter then.
Yeah, thank you.
And Shane and I are working on a memo to to the city manager's office, about the TMP update and just talking about like resource allocation, workload, those types of things to kind of justify our case. And we were going to include, a section about your work on it. So yeah, maybe that's me, yeah, I mean, maybe if you can get something put together in the next couple of weeks, we can just include all of the 2-pagers and that as part of that transmission.
That'd be great. Okay.
So I think we were hoping to like first week of August-ish.
That's really quick.
That's not 2 weeks, that.
Yeah, it's kind of like a week, isn't it? Yeah. So not next week, but the week after, end of next week.
This first council meeting is second week of August, right?
The 12th, I think is what, when they're presenting.
Okay.
All right. We went a bit over.
Yeah, sorry, I got chatty.
Meeting adjourned. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Being here.